Good morning. Welcome back after a wonderful fall break. I hope, well, mine was enjoyable. I really hope that all of yours was as well. As we're gearing up this week, we have homecoming coming up and just a lot of exciting times coming up. As you can tell, I'm kind of rambling a little bit because I'm a little bit nervous. Public speaking is not my forte. It really isn't. I tend to jumble up my words, I stutter, I rethink and go over. So a couple months ago when I was asked to actually speak at Numen Lumen, I was just like, yes, that's gonna be awesome. It's on my bucket list. I've been wanting to do it for years. And then I thought, oh, I gotta speak at Numen Lumen. I gotta, okay. Go through all the different things, especially talking about a topic that most people aren't used to hearing from me. Talking about community and the involvement and how we actually all get along and how we all actually kind of merge together. Most people kind of listen to me talk about spaces and locations and your conflicts and telling you, I'm sorry, you can't do that. So this is a great opportunity for me to kind of talk and address different aspects of conversations and different things that I've actually been observing for my 5 years here at Elon so far. Just a forewarning, I have really bad ADHD, and I kind of was, when I'm going through my notes and was reviewing it this morning, I kind of realized that I jump around a lot. So you'll have to bear with me, and when I say jump around a lot, it kind of goes from topic A to B to E. Let's go back to B. Hey, here's C. But I do promise you, if you bear with me, it all does come together. So, as I was kind of thinking about speaking at Numen Lumen, I kind of realized different aspects of myself coming through. I am an introvert. Many of my friends and stuff like that do actually know this about me, and other people don't really realize that. I feign, hey, how's it going conversation when inside I kind of want to curl up. But that's part of my identity. That's actually kind of how I navigate stuff. So as I was going through and kind of realizing that portion of my identity, and then how this interaction with you, with the people that will be watching online later, my staff, all the people I've been actually having conversations with this, I realized that that's one major facet of my identity, is I'm an introvert. I embrace it. I try my best to. But then I kind of also started breaking down that a little bit too, because we're talking about community. This whole series is about how do you, where's your place within the community? How does the community affect you? Where do you affect the community? What community are you talking about? Are we talking about small Elon community? Are we talking about North Carolina? Are we talking about our small communities that we have within ourselves? Because we see that everywhere. People find a place, they find the community because the community is where people are most comfortable with each other. They have similar values, they have a similar thought process, they feel comfortable with each other. But then you have to look at the intersections of the different communities and how they relate to each other. So what I want to talk about is my own personal reflection about my own identity and how that actually interacts with the different communities that I'm involved in. Because I took the introverted portion of me, that's kind of one of the things that kind of sparked it, saying, okay, I'm an introvert. That is one facet of my identity. But then I kind of looked at it and said, like I said, how is this actually going to be interacting with you? How do I talk about it with a large group of people? And then I kind of looked at different other portions of my identity. I'm a man. I'm a human. I am a father. I'm not a father. I'm sorry. I'm a son. I'm a brother. I'm surprise. Yeah. But I'm a son. I am a teacher. I am a student. And I just broke down my identity. So I kind of thought of it at first as kind of like a totem pole about how those intersections lie, but that doesn't really make sense. Because different facets of my identity are highlighted or brought out with the different communities that I'm involved in. As an employer, as a boss, I have more of the professional aspect of things. With my community, the way that I interact with a lot of people at Elon. But then I have certain friend groups. I have different circles of friends, and they do intersect, but there are very distinct groups. One aspect of my identity of being humanistic and fighting the good fight, that actually kind of brings out with certain people that I interact with. But then my sexual identity actually is exemplified with another core group of people that I hang out with and that I interact with. So looking at it, I broke it down. Just kind of knocked over the totem pole and just laid it out flat. And I kind of said all right, so how does this facet of my identity, how is it highlighted here, but not with this group? What different portions of it are with this group that's not with this one? And I just kind of looked at it. And then I looked at the correlation between the different groups. And then this was just kind of a personal journey for me. And I'm okay, so I can actually see why that actually exists. But then I started looking at other people that aren't part of my normal community. And then I looked and see what aspects of that community, that community's identity. What did they go through? How did they highlight? Where's that community? What draws everyone together? Then I looked at my community over here and actually saw how they all draw together. Like, how are we all combined? So then I got the thought process going. All right, so looking at the whole, but what about the individual sums? How does my experiences, my adventure through life, how does that actually aspect? And then here's a community that I may not have a full understanding of, but if I kind of like look at it, have conversations and break down that, I can actually find common grounds between the two different groups, or at least my place within that. And that's actually where the conversation about inclusivity and what we do on this campus, about how we can build that up. Because throughout my 5 years here, I've seen a lot of social engagement about different communities in here and their role. Years ago with Chick-fil-A and the LGBTQI community, last spring with Rally for Respect for our African American community and other minorities, and just kind of seeing where that intersection is, and then looking at why do we only talk about these like issues when major events occur. It's very important to discuss that, but then also too, well, what are we doing afterwards? What are we doing beforehand to actually have these conversations? Because I may not know what's going on with it, like within that community. I may have a good understanding, but as a whole, sometimes at the university, we're a little apathetic to the plights and the needs of some of our other groups. It's not anyone's fault, it's just that sometimes we kind of get consumed in our own little silo that sometimes having the understanding of others. But then, again, looking at my identity and actually looking where are the correlations, where are the foundations, where can we actually have these deliberative dialogues with each other? I am an introvert. I don't like speaking publicly. I get nervous because if you can actually see my knees right now, I'm actually buckling under. So I don't really do well with addressing large groups of people, especially when it's talking about sensitive ideas and about identity and those personal things, especially with a large group of people. I do better with smaller conversations. So here I am, I broke down my identity, and then with a student, a staff member, I kind of have them break down their identity for me. Look and see where those intersections lie between, I may not have a good understanding about what you're going through, but is there something that I can do to kind of relate and build on that conversation, actually build that foundation up? Sometimes when we do social engagement, we kind of look at how are we addressing the issue? Are we trying to actually build sympathy for that community? Because in the context of race, identity, anytime there's a group that's going down, sympathy is not the way that we want to go. Sympathy inherently in this context, actually, you're looking down upon it, saying, okay, my group is up here, and we're looking down about your needs and your plight, so I'm sympathizing, which actually automatically brings it down. But that's where the empathy building comes in. That kind of goes with that conversation that I had back and forth with myself, with other students, people that I've been actually rehearsing this with, and actually seeing like, okay, well, how do we build empathy out of apathy? And sometimes that's with single conversations that we have. Looking and saying like, how does my white identity, how can that be used in order to actually, with another group, in order to actually raise that level, lay that foundations down and actually build on top of each other. So this led to like some of the larger questions, again, about what other persons and intersections of my identity relate and correlate with other people? How can I actually use my experiences in order to help elevate others to the same understanding and the same plane so we actually can have those conversations to build? I don't do well, like I said, with larger groups of people. I do much better with individual conversations, small group conversations, which can be difficult because I don't consider myself an activist because I am not actively pursuing it in the way that traditional activism is kind of seen. I try to build those communities and bridge those gaps between the communities by kind of explaining why it's important to have those foundations. Where can you build empathy? Because we can't get you to care unless it actually directly affects you. So let's have this conversation. I advise a couple student organizations on campus, and some of their decisions that they've actually kind of made are a little questionable about why are you doing this? What decisions does your group, okay, your community may find this actually a very entertaining concept. But how does it affect others when it's actually a visual representation? Do you want that to actually represent your community, your organization, you as a person, and how does that relate to everyone else? So the different aspects and the different facets of that conversation is really interesting to actually get them to realize that what they may do in having that conversation and actually raising up their portion of the identity about how it actually is reflective of not just their organization, but those building blocks in between. So it was interesting and seeing that and having that conversation and actually doing that the smaller part, because my hope is that I might be able to empower them to have that conversations with others. And if I can, with the most minimal of eye rolling as possible. So I've been kind of going through, like I said, I've been having this conversation with myself a lot. As a lot of my friends may know, I have a lot of conversations with myself, sometimes out loud, and sometimes it scares people because I'm not actually talking to anyone. So I look at other different things that we do in this, like in our community, in order to bridge those, especially when it comes to diversity and identity. And I kind of see the empowering and sometimes the lack of community, that involvement with inside of it, with outside of that community that's actually posting it. In a couple weeks, we'll actually be having an Intersect conference here on campus. This is a wonderful, wonderful opportunity to actually look at the inclusion and actually how that interaction actually can help take place. These are our founding blocks. These different programs that we do are what actually makes us successful. With the Intersect conference, we have a poet coming in. His name is Clint Smith. I had actually had the privilege of actually seeing him a couple weeks ago, and I just want to share a poem that he actually wrote. This may not actually have a lot of impact on you, and this may be the wrong interpretation, but I want to read this for you. It's called Anthology. The literary canon is an artifact of exclusion, a kite slashed by the wind that could not carry, a spool stripped off the strings that could have not held it. Each flight a flurry of failures, their earthy walk on, soon draped in the autumn of grounded constellations. Our stars are not meant for their sky. We have never known the same horizon. When I read this, I kind of actually saw how this can actually affect different communities in apathy towards one another. And I see this highlighted here on this campus, but I see marvelous steps in order to kind of help bridge these communities and make us one. Because we all are part of a larger community. Faculty, staff, students, we're all part of the Elon community, and it's our job in order to actually help bolster each other up. And then looking at the individually smaller communities, it is our job, it is our privilege, because we are here in order to actually help build that community even stronger. And by doing that, is find the correlations between those groups. How can we build each other up instead of tearing each other down? How can we have an understanding within the groups? How can we build each other up? So I ask myself a lot of questions, and I'm encouraging you to answer these questions for yourself too. What is your identity? Where does it actually fall within the larger community? Where does your identity intersect with other communities that you are not a part of? How can we build these difficult dialogues and these conversations in order to build understanding amongst us? Because how can we truly be a community if we are excluding others, or if we don't have an understanding of what that community is going through? So the larger of the whole is best of its sums. So I want you to actually kind of look through, how does my identity influence my actions when I'm with one group of people to another? How does my role as an educator, as a person? Because innately, that's one thing that we always have in common. We are all human. And those human interactions are our basis of all of our foundations. It's our identity. It's the one thing that we all share, and that's one thing that we can all build upon. So if you have issues finding commonality between how your identity intersects another community's identity, there's the building block right there. We are all human. We all deserve respect. We all deserve each other's compassion. Thank you.